Well, just a couple of hours ago at the Pentagon, President Trump participated in a swearing-in ceremony of Defense Secretary James Mattis before signing an executive memo to rebuild the military and an executive order on extreme vetting. And earlier today, Trump clarified his stance on torture.
We have a great general who has just been appointed Secretary of Defense, General James Mattis, and he has stated publicly that he does not necessarily believe in torture or waterboarding, or however you want to define it. I don't necessarily agree, but I would tell you that he will override because I'm giving him that power. He's an expert. He's highly respected. He's the general's general.
With me now, Michael Pregent and Stephen Yates. And Michael, I think it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating, that President Trump, who seems to have a very strong opinion on this and has heard a lot of voices, is going to defer to General Mattis.
Well, I think that's great. He should defer to General Mattis. Remember, before he talked to General Mattis, he was for waterboarding. After he talked to General Mattis, he was against it. I hope General Mattis can also get him to change his mind on Russia as well.
Well, the thing, though, Stephen, is I think now listening to Donald Trump, it seems like he's forward again, like, you know, he's thought it through and other people have spoken with him, but he's got so much respect for Mad Dog. It's interesting, a general with the moniker Mad Dog would be against torture. But there you have it. But what do you make for others, though, who may be in the field who think that, yes, this is a technique that we may have to use occasionally, because there are going to be times, specific times when American lives are at risk, and you've got to try everything that you can in a small window?
Well, I think that a commander-in-chief wants his top military and intelligence advisors to tell him what they need, what's necessary, and what works. And the definitions of those things can change over time. And really, I don't think any elected commander-in-chief wants to be making those kinds of calls himself. I think President Trump is also setting up a kind of cabinet-led management approach to policy we haven't seen in a while, where he's actually going to allow his cabinet leaders to make big calls like this and stand by delegating authority to them.
So then, Stephen, how would this play out with respect to strategy in the Middle East, for instance, where at one point on the campaign trail, then candidate Trump said he knew more than the generals? So does he give them an outline of what he would like to see accomplished and then let them go with it?
Yeah, it's his job basically to give them the core principles he believes in, the key objectives he's tasked them with going after, and it's up to them to decide these are the tools we need to reach the mission. And I think it's a conversation that can change over time. We're not in the same kinds of conflicts we were in the immediate post-9/11 environment. And so it calls for different kinds of approaches. Those kinds of techniques that were used more than a decade ago, those are extreme techniques used under extreme circumstances, not the average manual kind of things that we would send out for everyone to use.
Michael, one of the executive orders today to rebuild the military, readiness, preparedness, how far is that going to go, even beyond the idea that there's aging equipment, but to the esprit de corps, which I understand has declined dramatically over the last 8 years?
Well, we now have a commander-in-chief, and a Secretary of Defense is going to ensure that our forces on the ground in Afghanistan and Iraq and our special operators operating in Syria are actually going to get the equipment they need. And more importantly, that the Air Force and the Navy pilots are going to actually have aircraft that they don't have to go to a place near Tucson, Arizona to gut aircraft in order to get parts. So it's good that our military will have bullets, will have the parts it needs to continue to support our forces on the ground, but more importantly, that the forces on the ground are going to be plussed up with intel and special operators, and we're actually going to get this right.
Do you anticipate,
this
Michael,
war against ISIS? Do
you anticipate also being able to kill the enemy? I mean, listen, we heard about these sorties that have gone out. They identified enemy targets, and either they weren't given the go-ahead or they were asked to shoot near or somewhere in the vicinity, but not go for necessarily, and as a civilian, I would call it a kill shot.
Yeah, you have an increased capability with our forces on the ground to use intelligence to actually pinpoint targets and use American air power to actually affect ISIS. Now, with the case of Mosul, you have 750,000 civilians in Mosul, so there shouldn't be an air fight. There shouldn't be one of dropping bombs on civilian targets, but one where we slow it down, make it an intelligence-driven operation to decapitate ISIS, much like General Flynn did and Mattis did against al-Qaeda.
Gentlemen, thank you both very much. Really appreciate your expertise tonight.